Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to B-Ball Breakdown. Today we have Steve Perrin, the man behind ClipsNation.com, to talk all things Clippers. Steve, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Hey, my pleasure. Well, listen, let's get right into it. We're talking about Chris Paul being a free agent. Is he coming back?
Yeah, he's coming back. Usually when people ask me this, I ask them, where else is he going to go? He knows he's got a good thing going on here. He can get more money here. It's a great market. He likes being on Leno. He likes being Cliff Paul. These are things that don't happen if you're in New Orleans, he found out. And it's a good situation. He'll be back. He was happy, and he's going to be back.
Okay, so how much of an input did he end up having on the coaching decision to not bring back Del Negro?
Well, it depends on who you talk to, but T.J. Simers wrote in the LA Times that the players are running the shop, and the truth of the matter is, let's face it, star players do have input, and they probably should have input. If Chris Paul isn't happy with Vinny Del Negro, then he's not going to be back. So the fact that he's not back probably tells you that Chris Paul wasn't being a huge advocate for him. Did he say, I want that guy out of here? I don't think so. I mean, to some extent, Paul probably helped keep Vinny around an extra year. I think they got along pretty well. But most observers would say Del Negro wasn't the guy to get them to the next level. I think Chris Paul saw that. So he wasn't fighting for Vinny, even if he wasn't necessarily the guy pushing him under the bus.
And what are the people at Clips Nation saying? What are the fans? What was their reaction to Vinny Del Negro not being retained?
Well, I think fans in general, I think you probably would agree, fans hate coaches. Generally speaking, the mood within Clips Nation, the mood within the fan base of the Clippers is, it's about time, he needed to go. Vinny has just a terrible reputation as being a bad coach, and I don't think it's entirely earned. I don't think he's that bad. I think there are a lot of coaches out there that do a lot of the same kinds of things, and Vinny is good with managing personalities, and he had his teams playing hard. I mean, if you go back and look through Vinny's experience in Chicago with the Clippers, his teams are always playing hard at the end of the year. They always close strong. That's not nothing. But he was not a big X's and O's guy. He would admit that to you, and he was always a scapegoat for any problem within the fan base. It was Vinny's fault, so they're happy to see him go. Yeah,
well, certainly after breaking down games from the Clippers for that long, I think that there were some issues there. And again, is it the players not listening to him and he has that knowledge, or either way, it doesn't reflect that greatly on him. So I'm anxious to see, who do you think they're going to bring in?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, obviously. I think that Byron Scott's definitely, he's definitely on the short list. They are talking to him, and obviously he's got a prior relationship with Chris Paul. It's a positive relationship. They are very close. So I think he would be a definite possibility. They seem to be interested in Brian Shaw, who's an assistant at Indiana, of course, and they're not going to be able to talk to him until after Indiana's out of the playoffs, so that may not work with their timing. They have an interest in Mike Malone, the assistant at Golden State. Alvin Gentry from the Suns maybe is on the list. Both Van Gundy's they're talking to. I like Nate McMillan. I think he's a good coach that's available. I would be very interested in that. But if I had to pick one right now, I'd say Byron Scott's probably got the inside track.
Well, that'd be a nice homecoming for him, coming back to L.A. And a little bit about the playoff flameout here against the Grizzlies. Well, I had tweeted out earlier this week that the sweep of the sweep of the Grizzlies by the Spurs said volumes about OKC and the Clippers as well, because again, the coaching issue there, what Popovich was able to do to the Grizzlies was something that the Clippers, I think, could have done but didn't. So, what's your take on that series and how that thing fell apart?
It's a good question. It fell apart because they couldn't handle the bigs. They just didn't deal with them. They didn't come close to dealing with them. They also got nothing from their wings, obviously. Butler was terrible. Billups was worse. Jamal Crawford wasn't good. That didn't help. Those guys had bad series. I look at what the Spurs did, and I see that there were some really good schemes for dealing with Randolph, but I also saw Randolph miss some shots. You know, there's a certain amount of guys have good games, guys have bad games. Randolph isn't going to shoot 30%, no matter how good the defensive schemes. He's not going to shoot 30% over the course of 4 games that often. And I also saw Green and Kawhi Leonard doubling Randolph at will, and Tayshaun Prince and Tony Allen doing nothing, whereas Prince and Allen were pretty good against the Clippers. Things happen. I think that if Tayshaun Prince plays a little bit better, then Kawhi Leonard can't ignore him the way he did. He can't go help Randolph quite as much. But yeah, San Antonio's schemes were really good. The Clippers' schemes were pretty dreadful. They never really adjusted. By Game 4, and I think, you know, I don't think Vinny was going to stay, but Game 4 sealed his fate. I mean, he was just pulling stuff out of thin air in that. I don't have any idea what he was doing. That was a joke. So he wasn't going to stay after that showing in Game 4 for sure.
Wow. Well, let's see. They bring back Chris Paul. They hire Byron Scott, let's say. Is the future of the Clippers Nation bright for them?
Yeah, it's bright because it's a players' league, and if you've got Chris Paul and Blake Griffin both signed for 5 years, both in their prime, then you're in good shape. You're going to be in position to compete for a while. Obviously, they're going to have to put some pieces around them, and they're going to have to do it on a budget, or they're going to have to go into the luxury tax, which is not someplace Donald Sterling's ever been. So we'll see if that happens. So they're going to have to figure out a way to put a good cast around them. And the shame of the playoff loss this year is that they seem to get a pretty good cast. They had an overachieving Matt Barnes. They had Willie Green playing well. They had a decent cast that they'd put together on the cheap pretty much that was performing pretty well for them, and they didn't get it done. They're going to have to try to do that again. People will want to come to LA. They're going to have a chance to win, so they're going to be able to convince some free agents to come in. And yeah, the future's bright. They've got 5 years. They will have, once Chris is signed, they'll have 5 years with these two guys together. That's all you can ask for in the NBA is a couple of superstars to build around.
Absolutely. Well, I certainly think that they can get the right coach, the right philosophy on defense, and a system on offense. They can do some really good things. The problem is they're playing in the West. Well, thanks for joining us, Steve. It was a great segment. We'll get you on for more stuff coming up on the Clippers. And don't forget, a B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, Steve?
Hey, I got next.